So today we have a very, very special episode. And the reason why we have this very special episode for our viewers who are watching this on video, you will see the biggest fucking, I don't know if I could say that in the same sentence as menorah in the history of menorahs. Okay, so I just learned that it is a green screen. I thought it was a real menorah. It looked that real. I was like, why is your hair not on fire? Because you have the giantest menorah ever. Jonathan, with that long preamble, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. With all this hair product, it would catch on fire, I think.
I can't believe that you haven't ignited. I mean, you look pretty shiny up there today. Well, listen, for those of you that could probably tell already, Jonathan and I are good friends. He is also a mastermind member for our Work Hard, Play Hard event. We just got back from Cabo. We're getting ready, COVID willing. I feel like I need to say now, getting ready to do our next one, which is going to be in Mykonos. And we share a lot of the same ethos in terms of, you know, our desire to live a full and fulfilling life. And it, you know, we had a conversation over the over Instagram, which is how the kids are talking these days. And we realized that, you know, where we are right now personally, and Jonathan more particularly, is just in a place where things are great in the area of business. And he's very, very happy with what he's created in terms of his ability to basically do whatever the fuck he wants to do. There's nothing that is prohibiting him from not doing anything. But as with all of these stories, there was a time when that wasn't the case. And he had to kind of like figure his way out of his situation and create more of the dream life that he is after and currently experiencing. So that's just to set the tone of this. So Jonathan has created a hugely successful company that helps businesses accept credit card payments. And he has quite literally figured out how to make money while he sleeps. We were having this conversation in Cabo, and he looked down at his watch and he goes, "I'm making money now. I did it again." I just did it again. And it really stuck with me. Number one, because it pissed me off a little bit. And number two, because he is able to create the automated income. But I want to rewind the clock back and take you, Jonathan, back 4 years ago where you were working. Can we say the name of the company? Do you care?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So you were working for a company called Wells Fargo, who has recently been in the news for not some good practices. But Jonathan didn't have anything to do with that. He was gone when that happened. So I want to take this in pieces. What did you do for Wells Fargo? And then maybe kind of describe your day a bit.
Sure. So I worked in corporate finance. So I worked internally at the bank. I basically only dealt with other employees of the bank. I dealt with nothing outside of the bank, no customers of the bank, anything like that. What we did was we did internal profitability. So we priced every account out internally and figured out how much money it made the bank, basically.
Can you give me an example of that? Like what would be, how do you know how much XYZ company, like what would be products that XYZ company would make the bank? Would it be like
a mortgage?
Savings?
Mortgage. Yes. Mortgage.
Okay.
But even your savings. So in the banking world, everything is flip-flopped. So assets are liabilities and liabilities are assets. So to a standard person, a mortgage is a liability, but to the bank, it's an asset because that's how they make money.
Got it.
Cash is a liability to the bank because at any point you can come and take your cash out. Whereas to the average individual, it's an asset. And so because, you know, it's cash on hand. So what we did was we priced, basically it's called like cost of funds. We knew how much we were borrowing the money at, and we knew how much we were lending the money out at. So we knew what it cost us to borrow from the Fed or what that cash on hand cost us. And then we knew what we were borrowing it out to the customer at. So we knew how much money basically a customer's account made us. And where really before Wells Fargo, I was with Wachovia, where Wachovia was really amazing at it was they got it down to like the branch level, the banker. They knew which bankers were actually making them money, who was doing the best deals, which branches were doing good deals. And not in the way of like getting over on a customer, but just like where we were actually making our money, which products made the bank money. And so that's what we did. It was very automated because you're talking about hundreds of millions of accounts. So technology automated most of it. And what we did was we were monitoring the technology, building reporting, building new financial models, things like that.
What did you learn before we dig into sort of like the 9 to 5 of it? What did you learn from that process now that you're a civilian out into the world and you are the business that the bank is looking at? What did you learn?
I mean, a couple things. One, you learn how inefficiently companies that large run. It was probably the main reason I ended up leaving. Was because I realized I wasn't built for the corporate world to get ahead because of the inefficiencies. I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm like, this is broken, let's fix it. And you get told it doesn't work like that. And you're like, huh? And then you see the wrong people getting ahead and you see things happening that you just kind of shouldn't happen or just steering a ship. Even when Wachovia was bought by Wells Fargo, as an example, Wachovia had much better technology than Wells Fargo. But Wachovia went under in the '08 crisis. And, the feds or the government forced Wells Fargo basically buy them because they could or take them over. And because of that, basically, if you were a Wells Fargo employee, kind of more, the upper management was Wells Fargo people. They were like, yeah, we're keeping all of our stuff. All your stuff is going away. But our technology was 15 years ahead of where theirs was, but none of that mattered. And that's when you realize the inefficiencies. It's not about the best product. It's about, people in these corporate positions keeping their job and status and stepping over people and trying to get ahead. And you just realize the inefficiencies of a big company like that.
Yeah, we tend to repeat doing the same thing. Did you ever hear the story of the ham with the lady at Christmas? Have you heard this? You're going to love this story. So I'll tell it to you quick. New couple gets married and she's putting the ham in the oven during the holidays. And the husband says, why are you cutting the end of the ham off to put it in the pan in the oven? She said, well, you have to. It's what makes it like a juicier ham. He's like, that doesn't make any sense. She's like, no, it does. She goes, let me call my mother. She calls the mother and she says, Mom, we cut the ham off at the end, right? She's like, yeah, we have to. Like, that's just I don't know why, but it just makes it better. She's like, well, my new husband here doesn't think it makes any sense. She goes, let me call my mother. So she calls her mother. And then she asks the mother the same thing. And the mother says, no. I cut the end of the ham off because my pan was too small. So there are these things that we fucking do that make no sense, but we just keep doing them and they are inefficient in this world. All right. So let's go back to you being in that situation. And you at some point hit up, and I think, I don't want to answer for you, but for me, listeners of the show will know I was a chiropractor and I wanted to get out of it. And for me, it was a slow drip Chinese water torture process where like I went to work and I was like, I don't really love this, but it's not that bad. I'm making good money, but I don't want to do this. I did that for 10 years until I couldn't do it any longer and went, now it's more painful to be here than not. Was it that for you, or were you like, this is clearly a temporary stop and I am out of here next week? Like, talk to me about that pain.
So it was really probably 6-7 years before that I knew I didn't want to do this. So I have a funny story I'll tell you. So I was young. So I was 20, or maybe I had just turned 21 working this job. So I had graduated college in 2 years. I really just manipulated the system. I'm not that smart. I was like a C student. But got out of college.
How did you manipulate? Did you break it to the computer system?
No, I took these, I came out of high school with 6 months of college done. I just did college classes in high school. And then I took these CLEP tests. CLEP, college level entrance placement exams or something like that. And if you take the test and you pass it, you don't have to take the course. And every college lets you do it. I clept then a year, and then my last year I did a year and a half in 1 year. So I was done in 2 years.
That's hacking. That's hacking.
Yeah. So I just kind of hacked the system. So I'm like 20, 21 years old. I'm already on my second job. First job was 6 months. I'm on my second job. I'm working in a mortgage financing company. Do you remember the movie Office Space?
Of course. It's my stapler.
Okay. So I was living that movie. I had one coworker who was like the skinny white guy. I had the other coworker who was the brilliant Indian guy. I had terrible upper management. Like, this company had the worst upper management. They thought just the longer hours you work, the better employee you are.
Is that the one where they had flair? Like, you have to have flair.
Well, that was at the restaurant. Yeah.
That was at the restaurant. Okay. But it was the same movie. Okay. Yeah.
Same movie. Yeah. So I was good at the job. It was just mortgage financing, spreadsheets. You're sending checks off to big investor banks. It was cool. I was learning about mortgages. I was learning the ins and outs of the mortgage flow and how it gets sold off and all this craziness. And it was fun, but I hated it. I showed up to a cubicle at 8:30. You weren't allowed to leave until 6. Your salary, but you clocked in, clocked out. I was miserable. One day I literally called in and I told my boss I had a flat tire. And in my 21-year-old brain, however old I was like, good, I don't have to go into work today. Like, that was my logic, right? Just I tell them I have a flat tire, I don't have to show up to work. Right. But really what happened was I drove halfway to work and I thought, I'm gonna kill myself if this is the rest of my life. Like, this is not why did I graduate college early? I should go back to college. Like, this is terrible. Drove back home. I sat in like sorrow for a day. My boss like texts me hours later, like, where are you? Like, you got a flat tire. Yeah. Show up to work. And that's when I realized I don't want to show up to a cubicle every day. If I have to show up to a cubicle every day, I will kill myself. This is not what I want to do in life. Now, it took me years later. So I worked at that job for a year. Then I got the job at Wachovia. I moved up to Charlotte. I was at that job actually for almost 9 years, I think it was. But very early on, then I thought, I realized, I tried this maybe smaller corporate job. Now I'm in a bigger corporate job. The corporate life is not for me. I need to figure out an exit strategy. So then I'm working in Charlotte. I asked to work remotely. So I show up January 2008 as a 21-year-old to work in corporate finance at Wells Fargo. In June of 2008 is when the crash happens. So I have nothing to lose because I have nothing. And so while everyone started exiting the company, I just started taking on more responsibility. So someone would leave in our group and I was like, great, I'll take that task on because I just wanted to stay. I just wanted to keep my job. So I built up enough responsibility that then about a year or two later, I was able to finagle a work remote. So I said, hey, I'm going back to Florida. I want to work remotely. You either let me work remotely or I'm quitting. But I had enough responsibilities then at that point, like 3 years in, that they were like, okay, fine, go do it.
You had leverage.
Yeah, I had leverage on them at that point. And I was a good employee. I do my job. I work hard. I got everything done. I was doing a lot of work for them. So I move down to Florida. I move onto the beach in Miami. I'm in North Miami Beach, beachfront, 23 years old, maybe something. Yeah, 22, 23 at that point. Living on the beach. I was working maybe 4 hours a day. And you would think I was like living the life. And because I was like, okay, I'll take this job, but I'll then go live the life I think I want, like living on the beach. And for about 4 to 6 months, it was amazing. And then once again, I wanted to kill myself. I was bored out of my mind. I hated my life. I was literally like cooking, cleaning, doing laundry. I was working. I was like, my wife was in grad school at the time. I was like, this is what everyone would dream of. And I was miserable. I just hated it. And I picked up the book, The 4 Hour Work Week. And that really helped me optimize my schedule. So I went from working my long 4-hour days to about 2 hours a day because I just figured out how to optimize my time even better. And that's when I really started tweaking and like looking for something else. I was like, I got to do something. And it just became kind of a brainstorming activity to start trying to find something.
Okay. So at that point, so it's interesting, right? So you make the decision to figure out how to work remotely. You get your ass out of the office space environment, but you figure out, you change locations. That's another key. So now you're getting a piece of the puzzle. You're like, piece one, get me the fuck out of the office. Piece number two is I want to be in a different location that speaks to my soul. And that happens to be the beach. But then piece number three is, but this isn't fulfilling either. So here's where I'm stuck in understanding this. Was it not fulfilling for you because you became so efficient working for somebody else that you only had to do it for 2 to 3 hours and you were just putzing around on the beach all day bored? Or was it more like you knew that there was an entrepreneurial drive inside of you that you were not servicing?
I think it was really both. It was both. I was bored of doing something for someone else. Like, it was fun. I would sit on the beach. I would go lay and get a tan at lunchtime. I would take my BlackBerry with me and I had it. And if someone called me, I was good. And I would lay and I'm tan and I was fit and I was going to the gym for 2.5 hours and I was just bored. I was like, I couldn't figure it out. I was like, why am I bored? I shouldn't be bored. People are dying to do what I'm doing right now and I'm bored. And I think that's when I started to realize, I've got this entrepreneur mindset that I didn't realize I maybe had, and I can't turn off. I have to find an outlet for it.
Well, what's so interesting about this is I've heard Tim Ferriss interviewed about the cover of his book. And if you recall, he's got a person lying on a hammock in between two palm trees. And he did not have that initially. That came later. And he realized that he had to Trojan horse people into this because what they wanted was to lie on the hammock. And he knew that anybody who was in your situation would lie on the hammock and then in 4 to 5 months want to kill themselves because they were just lying on the hammock. There's only so long you can rub cocoa butter on yourself, right? Before you're like, okay, I gotta change this, which is a super interesting thing. Okay, so now you got that. Walk me through how you went from that place where you were working for somebody on the beach, not happy, and then stepping into the entrepreneurial side.
So it was really just pure coincidence meeting a friend who's now my business partner. Okay. Our wives at the time, his ex-wife, my wife, went to the same gym. And so they went to the same CrossFit gym, girls, let's go out, let's grab drinks. We go out. He and I hit it off. He's an entrepreneur. At the time, he had just gone through a bankruptcy. He was in the real estate business, basically just lost everything. And he was kind of starting this new career in credit card processing, credit card payments. And so at one point, he's like, you should come meet these guys. They're really successful. They're really ethical, really good guys. It's two brothers. He's known them since high school. So he's known them for 20 years. And he's like, they're great guys, come meet them. And I was kind of reluctant. When I ended up meeting them, my brother was in town from North Carolina. And I was like, end up going to meet these guys. And that's kind of how we started this partnership. And it started off really slow. It was originally just my wife's dad worked for this hotel company who owned and operated like 120 hotels. And the company, their main vertical that they worked in was lodging in the hotel. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. This could be my perfect kickoff of they do hotel credit card processing. My wife's dad works for this hotel company. Great. Let's bring the two together. Still 9 years later, don't have those accounts. But that's another story. But yeah, so it just started that process. And then it was about 6 months into that where then my brother, who also happens to be a chiropractor, approached me and my business partner and said, hey, why don't you guys build something for us? We do a lot of credit card payments. We have a lot of issues with credit card payments. Like, help me. And can you help us build something? And that's kind of, that was in 2000.
Okay, perfect. Let's stop there because a lot of people now are in that situation where they're like, okay, I'm him. I've got my work pretty efficient. I can kind of zoom it in now with COVID, but I'm not making the money I want to be making. I'm not living the lifestyle, certainly, that I want to be living. And I'm not really sure what it is that I want to do. I do know that I hate Sunday night. I do know that I don't want to go to work on Monday morning in any capacity, but I'm trying to figure out like what to do. So here's what I heard. I heard that you know that you're good with numbers because you have a past history with banking and it was in your, let's call it zone of genius. Mm-hmm. And you are probably a pretty good judge of character. And you felt that this guy that you met in Miami would be somebody that you synergize with. And frankly, for all intent and purposes, if I, said, hey, I came home one night and I said to my wife, hey, I just met this guy who I want to go into business with. And by the way, he just filed bankruptcy and he lost all his money in real estate. I think he's going to be great. She would have said no, but you didn't even, that wasn't an issue for you because you saw something that you trusted in yourself that this might be a good deal. And then you went all in on it. And what's interesting to me is that the path that you thought was going to be the home run, which is, your wife's dad's business relationship, would get you into the hotels and you can use that for credit card processing. That's not what happened. What happened was you had to build it. And so you looked at it another way and you said, okay, well, if that way doesn't work, then my brother, the chiropractor, gives me this idea. So it's not like, I want people to understand through this. I'm using you sort of as a case study because I want people to understand that you don't know the fucking path. You think you do, you have an idea, but it's like a fog that's in front of you that you can only see 100 feet. And all you can do is drive the next 100 feet. You can't see 5 miles down the road. And if you can, that's great, but not everybody does. So maybe you can kind of talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you bring up a couple of really good points, even some things I haven't thought about. So one, the path. I mean, that was not the first thing I had tried. So I had been for probably about a year trying to do all these different things. Like, what business could I get into? So it was a little bit of trial and error of like, okay, what can I get into? And it was me just trying to start other things, coming up with ideas. I thought I was going to write a book. I thought I was going to do this. I thought I was going to do that. And it was just trial and error. So I was trying, right? And just figuring out what worked. Two, it was picking the right partners. What's the saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I really believe in that because for me, it was picking these guys who were 15 years older than me, who have had success. The CEO of the company that we partnered with, who we do the processing with, this was not his first rodeo. He had built and sold another company already. They're very ethical people. So I knew kind of where they stood ethically, just high morals, high character people. So picking the right partners was a huge component of that because sure, it's the Shark Tank mentality. Like I always yell at the TV when you're watching Shark Tank and someone's arguing with Mark Cuban over 5%. And I'm like, just fucking give Mark Cuban 5%. It's worth having Mark Cuban, like shut up and stop it and move on. And so it's worth, I gave up a little bit more of a percentage of my partnership to have better partners. I could go get a bigger percentage from another company, but I work with these guys because we work well together. They're good partners. They're never going to steal from me. I'm never going to steal from them. It's just kind of that kind of relationship. So that is very, very important. Part of that process is just making sure you find the right partners and then finding that lane. It is trial and error. I would say one of the biggest things I learned is patience along this whole process. I never had like one big jump. There was never like one account that I signed up that made me a lot of money. And so it was this slow grind that we had to take along the way. And it was right at first trial and error. Like I thought I'm going to go this hotel way. Oh, look what it led me to. Right. And you had to be prepared to go down that path. We ended up going from, I'm just going to do this credit card processing, to we built a whole technology company. And the thing I didn't mention is at Wells, I was in tech, but I was in finance, but I was also in tech. So I did a little bit of both. I helped build the systems or worked with the developers to build the financial models and systems. So you had to understand technology. Well, all of that work made me prepared for when I came over here. And all of a sudden we had to now go build this technology. Now those guys had the money to do it, but I had the knowledge of what I wanted and how to speak to a developer, to how to build it, test it, push it out there, and kind of get it working. And so it wasn't this linear path. It was, kind of that whole process that led me.
Yeah, this is interesting. So now here's where I want to make a right turn. And this is probably a little bit more personal than anything else. One of the things that I have observed about me, and hopefully this will serve the audience as well. One of the things that I have observed is that the world of friends that I am in, which are basically the people that are in my masterminds, you and some of the people that I'm not going to mention their name because I don't know if they want their name, but the people that are in our group that have large companies and are focusing on exits. It is very easy for me to feel like I have a very small penis when I hang out with you guys, because it's like, I'm selling this one for 20 million. I'm going to sell that for 50 million. I'm going to sell that for 200 million. And I had an interesting conversation. I'd love to know your take on this with Chris Harder. And he said, I think that you get really tripped up in feeling the need to sell a company for a large amount of money. And it could be argued that you have sort of figured out your life pretty well now. And some people are just wired to want to do a $50 million sale or a $30 million sale or whatever it is. They like it. And other people are wired more to maybe make $1 million a year or $500,000 a year. And, perhaps it's more automated where they're not working as much. So I am probably the kind of guy that could easily take 2 or 3 months off and putz around in Greece and, Sardinia and really, really have a great time. If I have, X amount of dollars that's coming in, but I don't have that desire to have the $50 million yacht that I'm looking at when I'm in Mykonos. But you're looking, I believe, for a large exit. That's what you want. You want to go for that large exit. So somewhere in this mix of doing this, there's a trade-off. There's an amount of work that you have to do now, sort of antithetical to the 4-hour work weeks deferred life plan. In other words, don't defer your life to get the big paycheck at the end. And you personally are doing a very interesting dance for me, because you're somebody that really is leading a very fulfilling life and doing the things that you want to be doing, and also are looking for the big payout at the end. So I guess the question with that as a pre-frame is, how wired are you to get a big payday because you're just wired for that, and your big number sort of represents, it's the touchdown. I did it. Mm-hmm. Versus I'm doing this strictly for lifestyle in the end. And then if that's the case, wouldn't you sort of consider that a deferred life plan? What's your thoughts on all that?
That's a great question. Because no one's ever asked it to me like that. I would say it's almost a mix of both. I guess I'll try and explain. So I think it was you had a post, or maybe it was a story you did or something recently about working backwards on your numbers.
That was what I was referring to with Chris.
Okay. So yeah, I went through that exercise maybe a year or two ago. It was one of the best exercises that I've ever done in my life. What's the lifestyle I want to live? and how much money does it take for me to live that lifestyle? And so I worked backwards of like, okay, because I have two kind of exit numbers. What's my like bare minimum, probably my first exit, and then what's my second exit going to be? Mm-hmm. And I've kind of worked on both. And the reason I work on both is because it's a little bit of both. There is a lifestyle I know I want to live. And so I have a drive to get to that lifestyle of, okay, I know I can get there. I live in LA. If I could turn my camera around, I'm looking out at the hills, like Hollywood Hills. I'm seeing, there's $20 million homes right over there. And I'm like, yeah, I want to live over there. That's cool. Mm-hmm. That like $18 million home. Yeah, I want that one. I want that. And there's a part of me that just wants to live that lifestyle because I'm bougie and I like it. And there's a part of me that wants to do it because I know I have the capacity to. And I do feel like I would be wasting my life a little bit if I just kind of sat back and enjoyed. I live an amazing life. I don't want for anything. I go to every restaurant I want. I buy clothes when I want. I'm not crazy. I don't like buy crazy cars or do anything like that. I don't overspend. But I live a very comfortable life and a very nice home, and I don't want for anything, but I still have this like drive because I feel like I can do it. And there is a little bit of me that feels this guilt of like, there's someone somewhere in the world that would trade places with me in a heartbeat and use this life to make something happen. So I feel like a little bit of like guilt or responsibility that I need to, because I can. I don't know what I'll do with the money. I want to do something good with the money. I want to help other people. I want to do like good things with the money, but I just feel this responsibility of like, okay, I know I can do it. So why not do it? Because what else am I going to do? I'm going to sit around. I've already sat around on the beach. That was boring, right? Yeah. I'm going to sit at my pool. Like that's boring. I'm going to like, I go on vacations. I do all the things I want to do. Like, because I make money now, I'm not one of these like tech entrepreneurs who is like basically living on ramen noodles. And then all of a sudden they make all their money. Like I'm making money along the way and then hopefully going to have a couple exits too. So I got this advantage, I think, of perspective of, if you have that drive, it's not going to go away. Like,
yeah, you see, I actually find you really interesting in this category because most people, I sort of like generalize, and sometimes I'm wrong, I'm sure, but I sort of see them, the world that I'm in is around, sort of like a lot of influencers and, those kinds of things. And I sort of see them, showing this amazing life that they're living online, but they're doing it for the photo. And they're not really living it. They're spending much of their time at home in front of a computer trying to figure out what the next product is that they're creating, and they're hashtag live your best life, but they're not living it. Like I've seen it. Like I've been in the house and I've watched it, and it's always frustrating to me when I see that, because I'm like, why the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you not just actually living it? So, this exercise on, what I did was I sort of like, brainstormed like, well, what do I want? I want a villa in Tuscany, and I want to be able to take 2 months a year off. And I looked at those numbers, and for me, when I threw even like, I want to have, $1,000 a week to go out and blow it on dinners. Like I really inflated it. I was only able to come up with, and I'm putting only in quotes, but I was only able to come up with $650,000 a year. And it wasn't because I had like, negative thinking about, well, I didn't put the yacht that I really want, but I don't, think I can get it. It wasn't that. It was like at this stage at 54 years old, almost 55 now, like what are the things that I really, really want? And there was a few things. It was like, I wanted a certain car and I wanted a villa and I wanted to take a couple months a year off, but the number was not as high as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like, 10 million a year I need. And it's an interesting thing, because I think that unless like you said earlier, unless you've done this exercise, you don't really know what your number is. And you don't know what the fuck you're trying to hit. So I love how clear you are on the shit the bed number and the oh my God, this would be my dream. So,
and those two numbers, my two exits are, one, to keep my current lifestyle. Because if my current lifestyle never changed, I would be the happiest man in the world. I would never feel the need not to whatever, but I also know I can get over there. And so I'm 35 years old. I'm going to go get over there. I'm going to get there.
Yeah. There's also another piece that I've observed with you, which is you have, I think you would probably agree that you were very, very business forward, very business dominant in your life. Let's go back 5, 8, 10 years, somewhere in there. That was very business focused. Excuse me. And now you are focusing on other areas of your life. For example, you have made an amazing fitness transformation. You've lost a ton of weight. We're in Cabo. While I'm still washing my face in the morning, getting a cup of coffee. I'm looking out my window and seeing a crazy fucking person doing wind sprints on the beach. Before the sun is up. Talk to me a little bit about that change in your life that really. It doesn't have a lot to do with money. Yes, you have a personal trainer. Yes, you're getting guidance, but that's not really a business thing. It's not really a money thing because, you getting up and running in the morning didn't have anything to do with money. There was motivation there for you to get up and do that while we were on a trip. Like, where is that part of your life coming from, and how does that fit into this?
Yeah, I'd always kind of struggled with my weight. It had always been a problem for me my whole life, like kind of just yo-yoing. I would kind of get in a little bit of shape. Like when I was living in Miami, I got in really good shape and then I hurt my back and then I was out 6 months, gained weight, and then it's this bad cycle, right? And then when I was in high school, I was in good shape, but when I was in college, I was in bad shape. So it was just kind of this yo-yo process I was on. And I just made a decision kind of during COVID of, okay, I have extra time. Work isn't as busy. I live in Los Angeles, which is the most tyrannical location you can live in the United States in terms of shutting down. Restaurants aren't open right now. There's literally nothing to do. There's nothing to do. So what else am I going to do? I'm going to just work out a little more and I'm going to use this time to get in shape. Is kind of just what I decided. And so I was like, okay, I want to do this. I'm going to put my foot down. What do I need to do? And I just started changing things up. You want me to go through kind of what the changes I was doing?
Yeah, I think that's interesting because you're making this matter of fact, like you just decided, well, hey, it's COVID and there's nothing I can do, so I might as well do this. But it still takes drive. It still takes focus. Like you still had to drag your ass out and stop, cut down your drinking and cut down the amount of food that you're eating, et cetera. So, you got to give yourself, props for that. But yeah, I think while we're on this, like, tell me a little bit about some of the changes you made because there's, as this is going to air, this is going to be at the beginning of the year. Everybody's, wants to lose the 20 pounds. So talk to me about what you're doing.
There were probably 2 or 3 big things that I did. So one, I started implementing, I started with a different trainer 2 days a week. And so I go to the gym 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I had been doing it for years, honestly, and wasn't seeing much. It was mostly like I was lifting with a trainer. And this one trainer had been harassing me for 2 or 3 years of come work with me 2 days a week. He's not a very big guy, but he's, like in very, very good shape. And he's more into, like plyometric type workout and very functional type movement. And so he got me doing cardio and he got me running basically. Mm-hmm. And so he started with, before we would do a workout, we would run a quarter of a mile and then it was a half a mile and then it became a mile and then it was 2 miles. And he would have me, he'd come on, he'd stand next to me, he'd talk, we'd put the treadmill on and I would run for a mile or 2. And that's how we would start our workouts. And then we got the cardio going and I'm doing cardio workouts with him. And what I realized was when I would run a mile before my workout, even a lifting workout, I would get the sweat going. And so I would start sweating and then I would kind of keep that sweat going through even my non-cardio type workouts when I'm just lifting. And I started enjoying the running. And as I started, I feel like with weight loss, momentum is the biggest key. Is you just got to get it going because once you get it going, you don't want to let it go, or at least I don't, right? Once I lost 5 pounds, I was like, fuck that. I'm never gaining those 5 pounds back. I'm keeping this off. Like I'm going to do whatever it takes. And so I just started running every day. And so, I was running on top of the workout I was doing. So I would work out for an hour with my trainer and I would run either before or after, usually anywhere from 1 to 4 miles. And that really was a big component. I think that extra cardio, my body is stubborn. Like losing weight has never been easy for me. I was overweight and I was working with a trainer 5 days a week for 2 years. I feel like had to find the right component. And it just, for me, requires that extra work to maintain. I can do an hour.
Okay. So when you did your training, I guess you're doing, what would you say? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 4 miles before your workouts now? What's your average?
1 to 2 right now.
1 to 2. Okay. So it takes you, 15 minutes to do that, right? Or whatever, somewhere in that range. Okay. So you got 15 minutes, and are you jogging, running, or doing HIIT training?
I change it up. I do both. So it just depends. Now I'm really like feeling my body. How does my body feel today? So if my hip flexors are tight or my legs are a little sore, I'll run at a 6 on the treadmill. If I hop on the treadmill and I'm feeling good, I'll run at a 7 or 8, those 1 or 2 miles. So I'll run a faster mile. Sometimes when I'm running and I hit 2 miles and I feel like I'm barely breathing, I'm like, okay, now it's time to do the HIIT. And I'll do sprints on the treadmill because I'm like, this just got too easy.
Ah, interesting. And are you noticing that the back pain issues are going away?
Yes and no. They come and go. I've got a little bit of a scoliosis, so sometimes I haven't gone to. I normally fly to Orlando and see this chiropractor once a year who took me from basically like a 19 degrees down to like 10, 11.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen him in a year or two, so I think I need to go see him again because it's starting to flare up a little bit. But I have noticed as overall, I would say yes, as the weight started coming off, the back pain started going away, the general stuff started going away for me, and it became a little bit more like acute, the stuff that was there before that I still need to fix. But some of these other weird things that would come in don't come in anymore.
All right. So 2 things on this exercise stuff. The obvious thing is what you're putting in your face, right? How much food you're eating. So what are you noticing now in terms of, or are you noticing that now that you're training more, are you noticing that you're getting hungrier and you gotta fight that off and not eat as much as your body is telling you to eat?
So no, only because when I started the extra training, I also started intermittent fasting.
Tell me about that. What's it look like for you?
Yeah. So I'm not as strict right now. I kind of got off of it in the holidays, and actually next week I'm kind of kicking back on hard, from Thanksgiving till it's December 18th. So what, about 3 weeks here, a little over 3 weeks, kind of got off of it. But prior to that, I was doing anywhere between a 16 and an 18-hour fast every day. So
like 7 to like 10 a.m., 11 a.m., something like that?
Or like noon almost. Yeah.
Okay. So what time did you stop eating at night?
It's between 7 and 8, and I wouldn't eat again until 12 or 1.
That's a big fast.
And there were some days I would push it to like 2, 3, 4. Where I could, if I was in the mood and it was working, because I would go to the gym between, let's say, 1 and 3, and I'm working until like 12:30, and I change and run out the door and hit the gym. And then all of a sudden, now I'm drinking a protein shake after the gym at 3 o'clock. And now I got a great, that day I might've gotten a 20-hour fast in.
Were you noticing that you weren't eating enough though? Was there an issue where you're just not getting enough food in your body, or did that not feel like the case?
Right at first, it felt like that. When you don't eat and you have that low blood sugar and you're a little lightheaded, and I had to fight that for probably 3 weeks.
And then your body adapted to it.
And then my body adapted to it. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't that hungry. Then all of a sudden, if I would eat breakfast, the worst mistakes I made that I wish I would have corrected is going to breakfast on Saturday morning. Like, you were good all week, and then Saturday or Sunday morning, and you're going to go out to breakfast. Then the next day, so let's say I eat breakfast on Sunday morning, Monday morning, I would wake up like famished. You would think I hadn't eaten in days. I was so hungry.
Oh,
and
your body
I noticed
wanted to
it
go
messed
back.
up my cycle.
This is interesting. I just interviewed a guy on sleep, a Harvard guy, and he said, it's important to keep your sleep patterns regular. and he said he was working with an NBA guy, and he said, your sleep patterns cannot be regular based on these HRV readings. And he said, no, it's regular. And he looks at he has him keep a sleep chart, and he looked at the sleep chart, and the sleep chart said he went to bed Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday at 4 a.m. And he said, it's consistent every time. He goes, no, that's not consistent. That is not consistent. I know it's consistent for every weekend. Because your body it strives on the predictability of knowing what it's doing. But the piece that I just got from you is that your body then says to you on Monday morning, okay, dude, Saturday, Sunday, we did brunch, we ate breakfast, let's do it again on Monday. And you're trying to teach your body not to do that. How much of an issue has that been for you, in terms of life? Like, if I say, hey, Jonathan, let's go out to brunch, is that, are you so diligent now where you're just not going to do it? Or are you like, you got to live both sides?
I feel like now, when I was in that zone, I would say no to people. So when I was like in the weight loss zone, because I lost most of the 30 pounds in about 8 to 10 weeks, about a 10-week time frame. So it kind of came off fast. But during that time frame, I would say no, or I would go and like drink a coffee while I was sitting there. So I was not eating. I was like refusing to, because again, I worked so hard that week to lose that weight, or even just maintain for that week. Because maybe that week it was just a plateau week where I didn't lose anything, even though I was intermittent fasting and doing all the workouts. I was like, I don't want to be above where I was last week.
I'm going to try your training method today, and I'm going to run before my workout and see how it goes. I get a little calf pain when I run, so I've been taking some time off, but I'm gonna see what happens. All right, I want to ask you some questions as we wrap up. Some of these questions are going to be weird. Just roll with them. What's on your nightstand?
Phone, water, and a gun.
Phone, water, and a gun. What else does anybody need in life than phone, water, and a gun? What do people often get wrong about you?
I'm probably not that bougie. People think I'm bougie, but I am, and I'm not. It just depends on the area of life that you get me in.
As long as you get everything that you want exactly the way you want it, you're not bougie. I mean,
then I'm not that bougie. Exactly.
You're not that bougie. I mean, if it's a 6-star hotel and it's done right, I'm not going to complain.
We're okay. You'll never hear me complain about
it. You get what'd you teach me? You get what you get, and you don't get upset.
Yeah, you get what you get, and you don't get upset when you're in Europe. Yeah,
I like that. What is one rule that you have for yourself that you're never going to break?
Just never quitting.
What's an unusual or absurd thing that you love?
An unusual or absurd thing that I love. Maybe it's not unusual, but I really enjoy watching the sunsets every night. I try and, no matter what it is, especially because I have a view of the sunset. I try and not post too many pictures on Instagram of it so people don't think I'm a douchebag. But I get these amazing sunsets, and I try and watch it every night to like ground me a little bit just in life and getting like my head off of my computer screen.
Something magical about it. We're blessed that we get to have that every single, especially in the winter. I think in the winter here in LA, it's even better than the summer.
Yes, the sunsets are way better in the winter.
I mean, just incredible. What's one goal that you had accomplished, and when you got it, you were like, God, I thought it was going to make me so much happier, and it was just like Tuesday for you?
When I made a certain amount of money, it was really unsatisfying. It's why, I mean, I have these number goals, but I know I'll hit them. I'll do that exit. Like that person you were talking about who's like getting ready to hit this exit potentially. And it's unsatisfying because it's like, great, I have this money. Now what? And I hit a dollar amount that I thought like, oh man, because I used to dream about that. Like the people that make that amount of money per month, man, they just must be living back, like loving life. And I hit it and I was like, it's fucking Thursday.
Yeah.
Now what?
So interesting. So that's really great. People are going to need to hear that. are there any positions or opinions that you had where, you're like, I used to think this way. And at the time I was convinced that I was right. And as I'm getting older, I'm looking at it and going, no, I wasn't right. I was wrong. I really was wrong about that. And I dug my feet in, but looking back, I was wrong. What hit you there?
I think, this is an interesting one. I don't know. I guess people's like judging people for their ability to change their mind. I think we get so stuck, like, especially like politically now, like COVID is a great example, right? There's so much misinformation about COVID going around. And we see politicians who make a decision who are unwilling to change their mind on that decision because they made a decision. I respect someone infinitely more nowadays who changes their mind based on new information versus someone who makes a decision and then sticks with it because like that's the decision I made. And so I'm really like, it's been something just during 2020 that I've really looked at of like, I respect someone a whole hell of a lot more when, even if they do a 180, I wouldn't call them a flip flopper. Like, no. They got new information. They, comprehended that information. They made some decisions and now they changed their mind. I have a whole of a hell of a lot more respect for that person.
I love that. And it's not even, it's more like, maybe it's not necessarily new information. Maybe it's just they looked at it in a different way, or maybe they got a little older, or maybe their values changed, or the lens at which they consider it is different. Like I saw an interview with Obama the other day, and they were asking him, he said, I changed my mind on gay people getting married. I just didn't think it was right initially. And then I thought about it and I was like, should they not get married? And he changed it. And I think, obviously people stand on both sides of that fence, but I think him just be willing to say, I changed my mind. It's somehow we view like we have no ability to change our mind because somebody's going to go, you're a flip flopper. Right. I think that's why we all love Joe Rogan so much, because he's so open and willing to change based on information.
Yeah. And he'll change during a podcast, right? You watch, he's talking to someone and someone can convince him because he gets new information. And I'm like, that is such a great value to have and hold, is the ability and willingness to change your mind when someone proves you wrong.
That's great. That's really great. What would your friends say is one of your superpowers?
I would say like a surprising maybe superpower. I really love hosting. Like I love having people over. I'm more of an introvert. So if I'm out in a crowd, I will be the introvert kind of sitting back. But if you're in my home because you're now here with me and you're a friend, clearly, then that's when I'm the extrovert. And so I love like hosting people. I love having people over. I love socializing, especially with friends.
That's great. You're situationally extroverted.
Yes. Great way to put it.
Yeah, that's actually a thing. I had this person. It's a thing. I had this person. I asked him. I said, I don't know. Like people tell me I'm extroverted, but she said, oh no, you're not. You're not extroverted. You're situationally extroverted. I said, well, explain. She said, okay, if you go to a bar at night and let's say if you were working and you had a crazy day and you're stressed out and you go to a bar and you sit at the counter. It's like it's a restaurant bar and you're sitting there and somebody's sitting next to you. Would you prefer to put earbuds in and read your book, or would you prefer to talk to the person next to you? I said, earbuds and read a book. And she said, okay, you're introverted. And I said, why does that make me introverted? She said, because people who are extroverted get energy when they're feeling depleted. They are energized by talking to other people. She said, how do you feel after 2 or 3 days of being with people? I said, I want to sit in the corner and drool. It takes me like 3 days to get over it. She said, you're introverted. She said, you're good at it, situationally extroverted. And I have friends who are extroverted that I've asked this question and I'm like, nobody's going to answer that question that way. And I'm like, if you're tired and you go to a bar, you say, oh, I would sit there and talk to the guy next to me and I'd leave and I'd feel so much better. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? That would light you up. He's like, oh, give me energy. So it's weird. Some people are just, that way. Okay. 2 more questions. Mm-hmm. What is your guilty pleasure right now? What is your guilty pleasure? That's a good one for you.
I don't really have a lot of guilty pleasures right now because we can't do anything in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I've really just used like working out, getting outside. I don't know, but it's got to be guilty. That's not a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Guilty
You're
pleasure.
cleaning your life up so much, you don't even have any guilty pleasures.
I kind of don't right now, and that's the problem. I'll say not having one maybe has been a problem. Like I don't have any guilty pleasures. I don't really have a lot of good outlets. I don't have a lot of good hobbies. It's something I know I need to work on in my life because I know I don't have them. It's why I go on your trips because I need to be, I love that stuff when I do it, but I wouldn't naturally force myself to do it. So I have to force myself to do it because otherwise I would sit at home all weekend and work and do nothing. And so it's been something I've been thinking about. Like, I don't have any outlets. I don't have any guilty pleasures. I don't have anything like that I need to kind of, hobbies right now. It's why I DM you when I see you on the beach and I'm like jealous. I'm like, I need to come visit you. You're only 40 minutes from me. I can like see you from here. I need to come visit you.
Well, listen, we're like 4 miles from each other, but it might as well be 3 hours in LA ship. Okay. Last question. Let's change things up. What one question do you want to ask me?
Maybe what gap did you have over the next 10 or 15 years? So between maybe 35 to 45, or that you kind of feel like would have been helpful to know, or helpful to bypass, or helpful to kind of be prepared for. Kind of
that there are no absolutes, that in the same way that there's no absolute where you want to eat chicken and broccoli and, eat a bunch of vitamins, become a vegan, go to bed at 8:30 at night and go all in on that versus the opposite of eating Twinkies and not doing any of that everything in life is balance. I don't care if it's relationship. I don't care what it is. Everything, work, hobbies, sex, no sex, every single thing is balance. And I spent so much of 35 to 45 and even now approaching 55, just thinking like, this is the way you do it. And if you want to get in shape, that this is the formula for it. But we are very, very complex people. We're complex chemically on a cellular level. We're complex emotionally. Spiritually, our world is extremely complex. There's so many fucking things that are going on behind the veil that we have no idea is going on. And there is a bit of balance that has to be addressed. The other thing I would say is that I did not look at the spiritual side. No, I'm not talking religious. I'm talking spiritual. I'm talking woo-woo. There's something else greater than that out there for us. I don't know what it is, but there is something. I did not spend time trying to listen to that inner voice, that still quiet voice that is inside of me, that is talking to me, that I'm not listening to because I have this thing that I want to do, or this place that I want to go, or this company that I'm trying to build. But inside, somebody's going, hey, look over here, or listen to, what is your gut telling you about this? Does this feel, when you're with this person, does it feel good? When you're entering into this business decision, does it feel right? When you're with this person, does it feel good? We have this guidance system that is inside of us that I just didn't listen to. I just didn't try. And so now I'm taking time to actively meditate on it. And when we have more time, I want to talk to you about Nucalm, Nucalm. We'll save that for our next lunch date.
Can I ask you one follow-up question to that?
Yeah.
I was just talking with someone about this exact topic last night, who was over for dinner. We were kind of debating, is this idea that we're all looking at this woo-woo and kind of, we were literally talking about that exact thing, about trusting your inner instincts and trusting your gut and when it tells you something. But that was something like my parents never taught me, right? And it seems like what I was trying to figure out, is this a new thing? Is this because prior generations didn't know that information? Do you think they didn't have access to it because of Google and podcasts and all of this? Or do you think it just was something they weren't into? because it seems like all of a sudden there's this explosion of this idea. And I think you'll be teaching your daughter to like, trust your gut, trust your instinct. When you feel this, even at 12 or 18 or 27 or 37, trust that inner instinct that's guiding you.
I think every generation before us was really in a lot of survival. They were trying to just stay alive. They were trying to go to work. They were trying to raise their families. And now at the blink of an eye, we can have groceries delivered to us, food delivered. Like we don't have to, I don't have to go to the Encyclopedia Britannica to find out who George Washington is. I just literally go to my phone. So everything has become so much easier that we're asking different questions and we're becoming more introspective because we're not in the fight or flight stress situation that our parents, I think, were in. Jonathan, fucking great, as I knew it was going to be. I cannot wait for this thing to come out, and I am going to message you this week so we can go do some lunch.
Let's do it.
All right, buddy. Thanks again.
Thanks.